Hey, good evening and welcome to Facebook Live, Friday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Kathy Beatty coming to you with Divorce Support Anonymous, bringing hopefully some hope into your week, into your life, some direction, some good news, some structure, some guidance. All of those things. I hope that these few minutes that we share Friday Night Live are giving and contributing into your life as you go through the trauma of divorce. A couple of announcements I do want to make clear this evening. First of all, if you have questions, comments, you can text me, you can call me, or you can simply make a comment. On this program, if you do make a comment, it's going to look like this. And this is being broadcast live into the Facebook page, Divorce Support Anonymous, and also the private group. So there are some public folks here. So I want you to be aware of that in case you do use a comment here. It's fine with me. And if it's general, it's great. It'll be great conversation. But we do have other folks on as well who are not part of the private group that would indeed see your comment. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And of course, if you do want to ask questions, I would love for this to be a conversation between us and not just my talking, but in fact your conversation as well, with questions, with comments, whatever they might be. So next, I want to share with you that the next virtual group begins Wednesday, October 28th. We are going to begin 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That is rather late, but it's so you can put your babies to bed and you can be undistracted and get the support you need. Now, what happens sometimes with the groups is we come together and say, this really isn't a good night for me. This really isn't a good time for me. Can we change it? And if we have within the group a different time, a different date, we can do that. We can make those changes. But join us for the first one, October 28th, which is not that far away, amazingly enough. And we will start 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we will go from there. If you want to contact me, here's my website, Divorce Support Anonymous, or Facebook page. Of course, you can message me, connect with me, and I'd love to hear from you. I've had some really nice conversations this week with some of you, and I appreciate those conversations, those questions, those concerns. In fact, one of the conversations that I had this week was really what inspired me to have this topic for tonight. What if I told you it wasn't you? Now, I always say that in group, and I always get these looks like a deer in headlights. It's like, what are you talking about? Because divorce brings out all of our inadequacies, all of them. Every insecurity we've ever known seems to rise when we go through divorce. And what happens is if you were the one that was left, you feel a lot of inadequacies, but I will tell you, the people who leave the marriage also have a lot of inadequacies that they feel. Why wasn't I able to keep the marriage together? Why am I a failure at the breakup of this marriage? Why couldn't we work it out? All of those inadequacies, they are stirred up within us when we go through divorce, especially if someone has left you for another person. We have all these inadequacies of, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I didn't make enough money, I wasn't strong enough, the list goes on. And all of those inadequacies just seem to surface when we go through divorce. But I want to talk about this topic tonight because I know how very important it is. And I know in many cases how very true it is. Now, I am not saying that we were the perfect spouse. None of us were. It's impossible that we would be. We all have flaws and we all have shortcomings. But many times when someone has left or you were forced to leave, many times is because there were issues in the other person that could not be resolved. It really wasn't about you. And that is also true if you were left for someone younger, smarter, prettier, and the list goes on, as we just mentioned. Whether they make more money, whether they seem more confident, they are more popular, the list goes on. People have issues that we cannot save them from. They have itches that we cannot scratch because we were never meant to. We were never meant to. So when people leave, sometimes it's because they have those issues, or we had to leave because the person we were married to had those issues which we could not resolve. And I want you to get peace with that. There are some people who will never be satisfied. And you say, but I've been married 20 years. I've been married 40 years. Still, there were issues within this individual that you could not solve, you could not fix, you could not be the answer to. And they left the marriage, or you had to leave the marriage because of the issues of an individual who would not partner with you, who would not work with you. And it's so difficult to speak in general terms because I know everyone's situation is so very different. But I also know that many of you suffer because you think it was you. And you bear all of this responsibility and burden on yourself. And it's not right and it's not fair. And I want you to consider the question. Maybe it had nothing to do with you. Now, how is that going to help us if we think that? Well, perhaps we'll stop beating ourselves up and letting our inadequacies take over our life. Stop beating yourself up because you have more good qualities than you have bad qualities. So let's focus on those good qualities. But stop beating yourself up and say, no, I wasn't perfect in the marriage, but neither was my partner, neither was my spouse. And we could not work together to make it through this, to resolve the issues. I want you to have mercy and grace and compassion on yourself. Because the good news is that's what God has on you. Mercy and grace and compassion. So stop beating yourself up. Stop taking on the burden and responsibility of other people's decisions. That's why boundaries are so important, mentally, structurally, emotionally, that we learn to accept our flaws and our faults, but we stop taking on the responsibility of the other person's decisions. We stop. We say, I'm responsible for me. And one question that I repeatedly talk with folks about as we go through every step of this, what can I control? And what are my choices within what I can control? What can I control? We have to be asking ourselves that question and stop taking on the burden and responsibility for other people's decisions. We will stay much saner by doing that. The reason they left or you had to leave, maybe it wasn't about you. I want you to give that serious thought. I want you to give that thought regardless of what your spouse may have said to you. And this is a question really that requires some talking through, some walking through. We talk about it in group. It helps. It really helps because, again, so many people are taking on that responsibility for the entire failure of the marriage, which is so unfair. But maybe you need to talk it over with a counselor or a pastor or a very great friend who can walk through this mucky territory with you. So think about that. Consider that. And then as we do look back over the relationship, eventually, later when we get down the road and we're able to look back objectively to our relationship, leave the lies of it behind, like it was all about you, and find the lessons that come out of this. Your life is full of lessons going through divorce. And your past relationship, not immediately, not for those of you who are in the thick of it right now. You need your energy just to focus on getting through this divorce, making it through tomorrow. But later, as you process through, and we walk through this, if you join my 6-month program, we walk through this. What are the lessons that I need to learn? For one, that I don't make the same mistake and date and be with the same type of individual that I was married to, which you will naturally if you don't work on your own healing. So there are lessons to be learned. We have to be open. We have to pray for wisdom. But right now, I want you to know. I want you to consider maybe it wasn't about you. Maybe your spouse had something called destination syndrome, to where they always saw life brighter out there, and they don't live in the present, and they can't be grateful for where they're at. So right now, I want you to consider that. I want you to have peace. I want you to have peace, compassion on yourself, and I want to end tonight just with this verse. May the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times, in every way. We're seeking for peace right now. And instead of taking all of this burden on and all this responsibility and thinking it was you, ask God to enter into this situation, to give you peace, to give you clarity, to give you the lessons that God would have you learn through all of this trauma of divorce. I hope it's of help. Connect with me, my website page. Connect with me for a registration form for October 28th. Don't go through divorce alone. Let's get this healing started. Talk to you next week. Take care. Kathy Beatty, Divorce Support Anonymous.